Hi, my name is Radust and I work in Steps to Work. I'm Marketing Communication Officer of Steps to Work. And in addition to that, I'm PhD part-time student at the University of Birmingham. I'm researching disability and employment. I'm from Bulgaria and my health condition is cerebral palsy. Okay. Before opening the discussion on diversity and disability, I would like to say that I'm really happy to be part of the Steps to Work family because we are supporting so many people with disabilities and health conditions. In fact, since 2016, we have been supporting more than 3,000 people with disability and health conditions, and this is around 40% of our participants. Okay. I would like to continue with social model disability. Some of you may be aware of that. Some of you may have heard about it. So basically, the social model disability states that the person with disability is not the problem. Actually, it is the society. Because society creates many barriers, and these kind of barriers can have an implication of social activities, employabilities, education, and just living a normal day life. Okay. And I would like to share with you some useful statistics. 60% of UK employees says that the cost of the workplace adjustments are the reason why they don't want to have someone with disability. But actually, access to work can pay up to 100% of the cost if it's applied in the first 6 weeks of the employment. Another interesting fact is that the employment disability gap has been around 29%, and it has decreased slightly in 2020, but in the last 10 years it has been around 30% or so. 2 in 5 unemployed disabled people who are looking for job are not feeling confident that they can find something in the near future, in the next 6 months, and this is just before the pandemic. And I started to identify that people with disabilities are more likely to apply for positions for which they're overqualified. And yet you can see other statistics which indicate that 1 in 3 people see disabled people as being less productive than non-disabled people. 40% of the employers say that they're worried the disabled person or someone who have health condition is going to take more sick leave, which is actually not true according to our latest research, because there is a variation according to the condition. So it's not 100% true. More than 20% say that they're less likely to employ someone with disability, and 60% that the person with disability would not be able to do their job. Okay. And you can see that there was a lot of perceptions of prejudice among society today. For example, if you don't know someone with disability or health condition, you're more likely to say that there is no prejudice in perception. But if you do know someone, you're more likely to understand the perception and the prejudice against people with disability. Things we need to remember about disability is that every disability or health condition is different. I think that nowadays we have like huge generalizations regarding disability, because when we say disability, most people are picturing a wheelchair, but actually this is not the case. So we have physical, we have neurological conditions, we have mental health, we have learning difficulties. So please bear in mind that disability is not only one thing. And another thing is that not every disability is visible. Every person has a different skill set and abilities. And this is especially true for people who have autism or people who have ADHD, but it applies to everyone, to people who don't have disability and people who have disability. And last but not least, disability is not an obstacle. Actually, it shapes a different experience. Yeah. And I would like to share some kind of examples of my previous experience with employers and recruitment agencies. Very often, um, very often when I went to interview, they didn't know that I have disability, even though that I have stated that on my application form. And one time when I was going to the interview and I opened the door, the person approached me and say, "Oh my gosh, you have disability." And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, you, hello." So you have to approach this kind of situation with a sense of humor, but sometimes it can be difficult. Another example is when I have an interview, and after the 5 seconds in the interview, they stop asking me questions about my, the job role, and they start questioning me about my condition. So it was just like someone is like putting you on a spot and asking you a question about what you can do and what you cannot do. So I think that employers can be more aware of different conditions and be more aware that this kind of topic can be very sensible. You know, some people are open to talk about their conditions, other people are not so open. So bear that in mind. Okay. And what employers can do to ensure best practices? I know that some employers, like medium or small size companies, you don't have a disability policy, or you may have it, but if you don't have it, please make one. I mean, create a disability policy and practices, and that relates to opening more opportunities to candidates with disabilities, fair interview practices, recruitment processes. And this is especially important for people who have like neurological conditions, for example, like I say, autism, ADHD. So making sure that you have the best practices in place and you can accommodate different people during the recruitment process. Practice what you preach, and this means that even though you may have a disability policy or you may be like disability confident employer, please make sure that you practice what you preach. Because if you look at your employers, and for example you have only like less than 5% of your employers have disability, you may want to ask yourself a question: can I do something else? Can I employ more people with disabilities? Another thing is ask for information regarding the reasonable adjustments. Access to work can give you all the information you want. Create your job specifications that allow a level of flexibility, and that means that you can have, for example, administrative position, but over the time you may change this kind of job position that can job description that can reflect the needs of the person and that occupies this position. For example, the person may want to be more creative. You can include some creative tasks and be more flexible with what the job description involves. Another thing is communicate with organizations who help people with disabilities, and also communicate with educational organizations like colleges and universities. Believe me, there is a lot of graduates who have disability and who are looking for job. I can speak from my experience because when I graduated from the University of Birmingham with Masters in Social and Political Theory, it was very difficult for me to get into a job market. And that's why I have to take another master's degree in marketing, and I'm working in the marketing field. So please contact colleges and universities. Create a safety net and level of trust. This is very important, and this is part of the culture of the organization or the business. And that means level of trust in which people can talk openly about how they want to develop, how they want to progress, what they want to do, what kind of needs they have, and things like that. And last but not least, make an investment in the development of people with disability in your workplace. That can mean helping them to acquire new skills, mentoring them, giving them the opportunity to advance. in a way. Okay, that's everything. Any questions?
Thank you for that, and for sharing your journey and your experiences. And I think, again, for everybody that's been given personal experiences today, just a huge thank you for your honesty, really, and openness. It does help to bridge some of the understanding gaps. Just a question from that's coming on chat, and then I've just got another question. But Callum's said often people invited for interview are asked if they've got any access requirements, and whilst he appreciates that's done with the best of intentions, could that lead to some unconscious bias, do you think?
Oh, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking, because actually I'm researching unconscious biases. And I think that can relate to unconscious biases during the recruitment process and even during the interview and before the interview started. So my advice would be just when you have someone who is coming for the interview, just being as open as possible and don't think about your disability in a way that can prevent them to do your work properly, I mean, for example, if the person used to do something that he's not physically able to do, that can be obstacle, but otherwise, just keep an open mind about it.
Okay. No, that's interesting. Thank you. Then I guess final question from me, and it's one of the things that the pandemic, I guess, has revealed. So for many years, people with disabilities and people without disabilities, but let's just focus on people with disabilities, have been told by employers that they couldn't do the job from home. It was impossible. They had to be in the office, they had to be in the workplace to do that. Yet the pandemic has proved that's not necessarily the case. And then I know I asked this question in a different event towards the beginning of the pandemic. One of the things that came out was actually it might be easier for employers now to make people work from home, and particularly people with disabilities to work from home, and that might then cause an imbalance with actually people taking their eye off the ball in terms of making workplaces fully accessible for people. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It is really a good question. I think that working from home can be really a good opportunity for more people with disabilities to be employed. I agree with that. But I would like to say that some people would prefer to go to the office as well. I think it depends on the disability and the condition. Because, for example, with people with autism and ADHD, because some of them don't like to be in the office, they don't want to be this kind of noise around them and things like that. This can be a really good solution. But for other people who are more like inclined to be socially involved in the process of working in the office, we can allow them to go to the office as well. So I think it depends on the individual.